All right, I'm in.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am Coach along with Lone Wolf. And Lone Wolf, I want to start out with one thing, and it totally, I had this marked down going into last week's show, but I totally forgot about it. Last week marked our 25th show already.
Wow, I didn't even realize that. Okay.
Yes. So we've done 25 shows since the beginning of the year. Um,
Cool.
So yeah, it's
That's
I when
awesome.
I was kind of cleaning up the YouTube and all the media files and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, and it totally spaced my mind last week. So um I
Well, yeah, awesome. Here's to some, a little bit of longevity. That's good.
yeah, exactly, and hopefully um we'll keep this going and see where it goes. I know talking to my brother who also has a show that plays in a couple of different areas throughout the country. He kind of wants to maybe do a joint show so we can both
Sure.
expand our base and do some joint ventures. So we'll be talking about that here in the future. Um,
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah.
but um, Not a whole. Let's just we'll just quick update the restarts. I really
Sure.
haven't seen too much new news. I know, you know, there are baseball clubs that are now practicing because I saw something the Brewers put out. I know NBA
Right.
teams are practicing. The only thing that I
Yeah.
really saw that might really amount to anything is that the cost of the NBA to to keep this bubble that these teams are supposed to be in Orlando is like $150 million.
Right. Hmm.
It's so it's like, well,
It's pretty staggering. Yeah. And look, I mean, they know they're not going to have fans, so they're going to have to rely on people watching and somehow I guess maybe the sponsorship because a lot of people are going to watch that. That's going to generate some revenue for the sport, which I think people are so sport starved that if you throw on some NBA basketball, people like me will watch it because and I watch basketball, but more college basketball than pro basketball as far as the season goes. But if you put on a season like that, where it's going to be a shortened season and every game matters, and then there's the playoffs, I don't. You're gonna have a lot of viewership. I almost want to say I guarantee that you're gonna have a lot of viewership. So I think they're gonna make that up and more. I think they'll be okay.
yeah, what I think is going to happen is people are just going to be so sports deprived, they don't
Yeah.
care what it is.
Right.
They're gonna
Right. Yeah.
watch it. Um, you know that that's my own opinion. I mean, you know, we're finally getting going to start next
Yeah.
week with our off season stuff with our high school kids, and
Yep.
talking to a couple of the head coaches today as we're making plans and things like that. They were an email went out to all the families, and they're already being inundated by their athletes on what's going on. It's like, holy
Hmm.
cow, let's pump the brakes here just a second here. We
Right.
we don't know all the details, but I think it's just people are deprived. We've been talking about this forever.
Yeah. For a
It's
while. Yeah. Yep.
people are deprived of sports. They want sports back.
Right.
Um, you know, so they're going to take whatever they can get. You
Yeah.
know,
And and
yeah,
and the format's gonna be different, and I think we all have to recognize that that's the case. It just isn't going to be the way it was before until something changes with the virus. That's just the bottom line. So, yeah, if they have some sports and the NBA is there and they're playing their games, yeah, people are going to be hooked on it. They're going to be watching it. So the
Yeah,
only
and
thing I saw about coach baseball, I think the minor leagues canceled their season completely. Um, you know, so that was the only thing I saw outside of some players not getting not wanting to play just for health and safety reasons. But I did see minor league was done.
yeah, and just looking here, I'm on ESPN here. The Clippers have shut down their facilities because of positive COVID tests.
Okay.
So that will be interesting because like a team like the Clippers, who are one of the top teams,
Yes.
if they're saying we're not risking our organization, do they just basically forfeit then?
Right. I don't
That
know. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so I think that this whole new format with um, this shortened season, I think, is going to be intriguing to a lot of casual
Mm-hmm.
fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at least for this year, you might get people that usually don't watch the NBA. Personally don't watch the NBA, but I'll probably watch just to see what it looks like. You know, um,
Well, and to
because
see
I
what
want,
happens. I mean, there's
yeah,
there's a lot of that's the cool thing about this is there's a lot of drama that's involved in this shortened season and what's going to actually go on. And people want to follow a sports drama. They want that there's a certain excitement, there's a certain draw to it. Just
right,
like a good sports movie, which we are going to get into later. So
yes, yes. Um, so yeah, so that's the updates. Not a ton, um, but a little bit. Before we get into the fun stuff with the NFL, two things that came up, and one I just texted you about,
yes,
and
yeah, I saw that.
and then another one it's been there on and off for years. But let's quick go over. The NFL's announced that week one of them, and there's a myriad of things they're gonna do
Right.
for um, for diversity and then systemic racism and things like that week one and things like that, but they're gonna play and I didn't even know this, the Black National Anthem before all
Right.
week one games.
Right.
I mean it's their decision.
Yeah.
um my concern is they're starting a lot of people watch to get away from the politics.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they need to be very, very careful
Right.
on how far they go with this
Yeah.
because you're going to turn people away that use that as a way to get away from reality for a few hours.
Right. Right.
Um, I understand they're a huge organization. They can affect a lot of change. I get that.
Right.
And
And
like I
and
said,
and a lot of the people who live, work, whatever because of the NFL are people of color.
right. So I get all that.
Right.
But I think they do need to be careful. Just they need to be careful on how much they push this during their games
Right.
because like I said, I just think that people, especially right now, just want to forget about things.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And there's a fine line between doing something to promote a cause or to highlight it and pandering. And I don't want to say that in a way that makes me sound like I don't care about those issues because
right,
that's not the case. I think that's part of the problem, and we've talked about that a couple other times where if you're not with me, you're against me. So it doesn't have to be that way. And I think people on either side tend to get like that. Um, and I'm not condoning certain activities. All I'm saying is, yeah, I think, you're right. They have to be careful about how far they take this, right? So they can affect some social change, but really it's an entertainment business. It's not a
Correct.
political organization from the standpoint where it's out there saying believe this, believe that. It's meant to entertain. So you can do that at the beginning, but yeah, be careful about how far you go with it, because you could end up turning off a whole different viewership because of
Right.
what you do.
Right. And like you said, we're not sitting here saying that this is not something that's not important to address and that we don't support the change. It's a matter of fact that there are people that just they don't we're inundated with it right now in everything we look at. Every
Right.
time you turn around, you're seeing stuff. When
Yeah.
somebody sits down and watches a sporting event, they not aren't necessarily going to want to be reminded of that stuff at that juncture. So again, the if it's just week one, okay, but now if it's something that they do every week,
Right.
then that's where it's starting into a gray area for me. Because here's the
Hmm.
thing, and again, I'm not saying this is not my official viewpoint of everything. What if you said it's okay for players to kneel and whatnot for the national anthem?
Right.
What if players decide to kneel during the Black National Anthem?
Right. Right.
Have you,
Right. Yeah.
again, these are
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
things that
No, I mean,
I'm
that's a
just
good point.
wondering.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they've thought all these things through because
Through. Right. Yeah.
again, you would hope all players and all people would be supportive of this stuff.
Right. And be
But
respectful.
right,
Right.
but let's be real. There
Yeah.
are
That's
some people that aren't
won't be. Right. Yep.
and won't be, and if they do something now, we're blowing up a whole new issue. So again, this is just you need to be careful on how you balance this stuff out.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to bring that up because I saw
Right.
that driving home and I was like, are you kidding me? It came
Yeah.
across as a notification on my phone. That's first I heard about it.
Yeah.
The second thing, and I'm so sick and tired of it. There is a demand that the Washington Redskins change their name.
Oh, yeah. Haven't we
Again,
been down this road
we've
about
been down this road
20,000
numerous
times?
times, but now FedEx has officially requested the Redskins change their name. Obviously, they have the naming rights to the Redskins
Right. Right.
Stadium.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think FedEx can back out of their contract if they don't change the name.
Right.
Um, and Dan Schneider's been on record saying he's not changing the name. And
Right. So until he
you know,
dies, it's not going to change. I really don't think.
right? And now they're kind of trying to play politics here too, in
Yeah.
that there's the Redskins are looking at possibly building a new stadium,
Sure.
and some of the lands in Washington D.C. They're saying unless you change your name, you can't build on this land, or have this land, um, or we aren't going to renew your lease at this stadium unless you change your
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Well, Dan Schneider's already looked at land in Virginia and some other states,
Sure.
and I've been very critical of Dan Schneider. I don't think he knows a lick
Right.
about football, but he's a
Right. Yep.
businessman.
Yeah.
And he knows that there's a huge fan base for the Washington Redskins, and he would probably lose a percentage of that fan base if they changed their name. He's just going to
Sure.
move.
Yeah.
He'll move the team.
Right.
He has no remorse.
Loyalty to the
Yeah,
location.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's just gonna say, "Oh, we're out then." Um,
Sure. We're going to move
it
to
would
Alexandria, Virginia, or whatever,
right.
wherever it is. Yep.
They
Yep.
would have to sit there and basically every major corporation would have to say, "We're not gonna sponsor you," and he would
Yeah.
have to start losing money
Yeah. That's
from
right.
this.
Exactly right. Yep.
And
That's
that's
what would be the
not
concern.
going, it's not going to happen. Because even if
Right.
FedEx bows out, somebody's going to come in
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to expand our company
Yeah.
and give them money.
And
Um,
that's the reality of it. I mean, you hit it on the head with this. If if Landover or Washington or wherever they end up or they're looking at right now is like, oh, you can't do that. Well, somebody's going to say we want an NFL football team
mhm.
in our backyard. I mean, at one point, and you may remember this, the Packers were going to redo Lambeau, right? And they had the referendum with the sales tax and everything. This is many years ago, but you know, they never would have moved out of Green Bay, but they threatened, oh well, maybe we'll go to Kimberly or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
There was
I mean,
talk
they
if
wouldn't have
that,
left, but
yeah,
I
there
don't
was,
think. But
yeah, there was talk that if the referendum didn't pass, that they were going to move to Madison
oh
or
yeah, yeah,
Milwaukee. They're like, well, we can go play at Camp Randall and have a hundred
right.
thousand people in our stands.
And you know what? Then the thing is, it's like those cities would have welcomed them with open arms.
Mm-hmm.
With open arms. And so the Washington Redskins thing is no different in terms of, well, you can't build here unless you change the name. Well, then he's just going to do that. I agree. That's exactly what Dan Snyder would do. He'd be like, oh,
Yeah,
well, Virginia's looking great.
exactly.
What are you
You
guys going to
know,
do?
um, I think again, it's my personal thing is okay. I understand. Some people, have issues with it.
Right.
Um, okay, I get it, but then the Redskins come out and say, "Well, no, we're honoring it." The same thing with Florida State,
Yeah, the Seminoles.
yeah,
Yeah.
Seminoles, things like
And I
that.
don't know how, and honestly, I will say this I don't know how that's offensive because the last time I checked, Seminole is the name of a tribe that lived there.
Right,
Redskin implies like, something about your skin and it maybe it could be taken a certain way. Seminole is just the name of a tribe. So I honestly have no clue how that's offensive to someone. It'd be like I'm calling myself, a tribe from a certain area. I don't know, the Fox or the Oneida or something. I mean, I don't know how that is. And maybe I'm not understanding that perspective for that person who thinks it's offensive, but I guess I could see where Redskin would be, where a Seminole might not be. But I guess, I mean, we're talking about this. What about the Cleveland Indians? I mean,
right.
how many people have been getting up in arms about that? I don't really see that a whole lot. So why the Redskins? The Redskins get a lot of play. It seems like out of all of the names of professional sports teams, they're the ones that people bring up the most or have an issue with the most.
Right. And I don't know why. I really
Yeah,
don't know why that is the 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 team that it always brings this to a boil. And maybe it's
right.
because Dan Schneider's publicly come out and said we're not going to change our name.
Yeah, and that could be. Yeah, yeah,
Maybe that's it. I don't know. Um, but yeah, like you said, you got the Cleveland Indians, and the you could sit there and um, you know a group could say anything's offensive.
yeah.
Um, you know, the Cowboys. Somebody could be offended by the name Cowboys. you know.
Sure. Sure.
So you have to really, again, I just, my issue is I'm fine if you don't like the name and
Right.
you would like to see them change the name. I'm fine with that. But starting to, try to hinder their functioning as a organization because they're not changing it, you again, you kind of lose me on that
Yeah.
stuff because it's like, come on, it's not like they're coming out and like saying this is a certain group right now. I just,
Yeah. I mean, they function as another NFL team. Um, their brand is not really predicated on anything other than trying to be the best football team that they can be. I don't. To me, it just doesn't even feel like there's anything really there to go off of. They're just another team in the NFL, not a very good one, and that's all anybody. For the most part, that's really what people see right now. They don't see more to it than that.
right.
I don't feel like. So
So that's the off the field stuff. Now we've
we get to
had
some of the on the field stuff here. Yeah.
one major signing, and we kind of talked about this would be a logical landing spot for him. Cam Newton
Sure.
is now a New England Patriot.
Yes.
Not really shocking. The Patriots needed a better quarterback than they had on their roster. They didn't
Yep.
draft a quarterback.
Yep. And they waited a while before they pulled the trigger on this.
Right. What I have an issue with, I read multiple articles. First of all, Rex Ryan comes out and says every team that passed on Cam Newton is going to be sorry. Sorry for what, Rex Ryan? The guy's been off injured. He's had some attitude issues. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. So I shook my head on that one because I was like, really?
Yeah.
And this guy's a professional. I mean, come on, people
Right.
listening, give us a crack at this. Pay us to do this stuff. We'll at least come from a common sense, side of things. The other story,
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Stephen A. Smith said it is undoubtedly true that the Patriots now will win the AFC East because of Cam Newton.
Yep.
And I almost fell out of my chair laughing.
Right. I mean, I'll give Stephen A. this. The guy makes bold statements all the time, so this is not unusual for him
Right.
to say something like this. But I think he's dead wrong.
I agree.
Yeah.
That roster is not a talented roster.
Right.
That roster has been depleted and it is not as good as it's been. You lost multiple free agents from your defense. That's what carried you last year.
Right.
You didn't really replace them. You're bringing in a quarterback coming off of injuries, learning a new system, now has 2 less weeks to prepare because the NFL cut the preseason officially down to 2 weeks.
Correct.
And you're bringing them in a week and a half before training camp starts? I
yeah.
don't see how this makes them a contender, makes them even a contender for the AFC East title.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been waiting on this one because, when this first happened, there are a couple people that texted me and they're like, "Oh, did you see this?" and da da da. And I think people are looking at the Cam who was in the Super Bowl and the Cam who was an MVP and the Cam who was leading, the Panthers to this and to that. I don't think they see the Cam of now. And I'm not saying the guy can't have a resurgence. It's possible. But who is the quarterback in the last decade who has taken more hits than anyone else on planet Earth? It's him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's by and far him over anybody else in the league who has taken the most abuse for his body. And granted, some of it is him because of his play style. He's a big guy. He's athletic. He runs a lot. He takes hits. Um, and so it's taken a toll on his body. And like you said, oft injured. He's just coming off injury. So I've been waiting on this one because I think these guys are wrong. I saw one article, only one, by a writer on NFL.com who said this is not going to be what people think it's going to be. And here's why, because of Cam Newton's inaccuracies and Cam Newton's injuries, it is not going to be this game changer for the Patriots. You're absolutely right, Coach. Their roster is not good enough to propel them into a playoff run. And whether or not they actually could even win the division, I suppose it's possible, but this signing does not change things to me for them saying that they're going to win the division over the Bills.
No,
It doesn't change that at all.
unless the Bills implode,
Right.
it's their division to lose. Now, I will say this: I think it if Cam Newton can play at least partly to where he's able to play, it
Mm-hmm.
might put them back into that wild card hunt, because I think we both agree that before Cam Newton, there's no way the Patriots are going to the playoffs.
It's true. Yeah, I agree with that. Yes.
So I think this could put them back in that conversation, and maybe that's what Belichick's thinking is like, hey, I know I don't have a Super Bowl roster right now, but let's at least make the playoffs.
Sure.
Let's not totally implode this thing. I'm not ending my career being, a last place team. Um, he does have the Jets in his division, so he has that.
He's got that going for him, right?
They shouldn't finish below the Jets. The Dolphins, though, have talent. I think have a more talented roster than the Patriots do right now.
I agree. I think I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, whether they put it all together or not, I don't know.
Right.
But it's a Belichick understudy who can beat him.
Mm-hmm.
And
he has beaten him.
And he has.
So, yeah, I'm not as excited about this signing as a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I think we all knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time when it was going to happen. Now, I'm surprised it did take this long, though. I am very surprised because,
yeah,
again, training camp's starting soon. He's got to learn a new offense. He's not going to be able to play like he did in Carolina. Belichick will not put up with that.
No, he won't.
The just ad-libbing. He's not going to put up with that. And
and that's not the offense that they've ever run. I mean, Brady is not that kind of quarterback, and that's not the offense that they would. I mean, and granted, maybe Belichick will try to adapt a little bit, but I don't think it's going to adapt that much.
Right, and I'll tell you right now, if he does, let's just put this out there. If he does start, and he's going to play this run around and do my own thing game, Belichick will bench him.
Yeah.
Because I think Belichick would rather lose than have that stuff go on.
Sure. And get him out there and see what you got.
Yeah. See what you got in him. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. But yeah. I don't think it's going to turn out like some people are thinking that it's going to.
And what's one of the biggest knocks on Cam Newton? I mean, we've watched him play enough football, the guy tends to throw high.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of his things, and he has done that, especially if he's making a throw to the outside. The Patriots do not have a lot of height at the receiver position in any of their good receivers, if you could call them good receivers, first of all. And their best receiver, Edelman, is not a tall receiver. Cam Newton isn't known for throwing that little route over the middle that Julian Edelman normally runs. So if he can't really throw that and he can't adapt to that, I don't see that working in their system. I don't see them changing that. And maybe there'll be a younger receiver who's taller who he connects with, but I don't really see this becoming, this amazing thing where all of a sudden, he's got this huge resurgence and they're the team to beat. And look at the AFC teams that we would identify as playoff teams. The Ravens, the Chiefs. They don't have rosters. The Titans, they don't have rosters to match up with those teams.
No, I mean,
they don't have a roster to match up with those teams. They don't.
There are so many teams in the AFC that I like their overall roster more than the Patriots right now.
Right.
That, like I said, they may be able to sneak into the playoffs, and I think that's only because that we're adding a playoff team.
Right, the seventh one, yeah.
I as much respect as I have for Bill Belichick and what he's done and can do with a roster,
right?
I don't see it this year.
Yeah, I mean there are limits to a certain point with a guy and his ability to be able to get something out of what you've got. So
right. So Cam Newton officially a New England Patriot, and I think everybody's thinking foregone conclusion that he's a starting quarterback, but it's only a 1-year contract. So I think I would not be shocked if he's the backup.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, honestly, I think they brought him in to put him out there.
I don't know. I really don't know. It was a 1-year incentive-laden contract. I think Belichick signed him because if Stidham stinks it up, he has somebody to fall back. Because if they didn't sign Newton and they put Stidham out there, Stidham stunk or got hurt, you're gonna put
then you got Brian
Hoyer?
Yeah.
Right, come on.
Yeah.
So
what are you saying that Brian Hoyer isn't going to bring you to the promised land, or is that what you're trying to tell me?
There was 1 year I had Brian Hoyer on my fantasy roster, and he helped me make the playoffs. Because he came in.
Not recently.
That was not recently. He had a couple games of his career for me. But jeez, no.
Yeah.
So moving on to the other on-field thing that it may turn into nothing, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Antonio Brown has been working out with Russell Wilson.
Right.
I think that's a huge mistake. To be
I agree.
Honest.
Well, and from an image, and here's the thing: from an image standpoint, Russell Wilson is a guy who prides himself on his image, and maybe he would tell you, just working out with the guy, or we've been talking and he's redeeming himself, or whatever he's going to say. But Russell Wilson's big into the Children's Hospital. He's a good, clean-cut guy. He portrays himself that way with his image. Hanging out with a guy like Antonio Brown, no matter what you say, to me, damages that in the public eye.
Absolutely. If Seattle's really thinking about signing him, all they have to do is look back to last year.
I know.
Who did you bring in last year, and how did that turn out for you?
Exactly.
It's going to be Gordon 2.0. I'm sorry, Antonio Brown may be able to catch the ball. He may be able to run routes, but he can't keep his mouth shut. He can't stay out of trouble. He's one of those guys that just can't get out of his own way.
And for different reasons.
Right,
But
right.
still, it doesn't matter. It's an ego thing with him,
And again, if you've listened to this show, and Lone Wolf, you know this, I look at it from a GM perspective. I would not touch him, especially with everything going on right now. I don't need more attention that could be in a negative way to my
Especially
organization.
not for a place like Seattle, which has seen its share of issues during this crisis.
Come on. I'm not bringing that up because I don't want to talk about that stuff
threw
anymore.
That out there briefly. That's all. That's all I'm going to say.
I think everybody knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
but I will say this. I mean, I agree with you from a GM standpoint. You have to look at what you have on your roster from the Seahawks. They have some good receivers on their roster, and don't, unless I'm wrong, I think it was I think it's DJ Chark is the receiver that is a newer receiver for them, and he looked at the end of the year particularly pretty amazing from what I recall. And they have some experience there at the receiver position. So, yes, I know it's tempting. The talent is tempting. But do you really want to do that? Do you really want to bring a guy like him in?
Well,
no. The answer is no. I mean, you don't.
And here's the other thing with Seattle.
Okay, Chark plays for the Jaguars. DK Metcalf is the guy I was thinking of. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up the roster right now. The other that because they have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf,
right?
So they have some really nice
they've got guys
receivers.
Yeah.
The other thing is this: when you look at their roster, their overall roster, they're a very young team.
Right.
Young players learn from veteran players, either positive or negative.
Right.
Do you want Antonio Brown having a impact on your young receivers? Metcalf is going into his third year. Lockett's been in the league, 6
for a
seasons.
While. Yeah.
But you have a young roster. There's a lot of 4-year and under players, on their roster. Do you want to take the chance that he infects some of these people with that type of attitude? I wouldn't.
I would say no. I mean, you just don't want to do it. Now, the guy is, like I said, the talent is the temptation, right? You look at it and you say, oh, maybe we could harness this guy and it wouldn't be too bad for 1 year or something like that. But, you have to take everything into consideration. Like you said, in the locker room, from a standpoint of the media circus that goes along with it. And then not only that, but just the antics that you could potentially run into with this guy. You just don't know what he's going to do. He became a problem in Pittsburgh, and they got rid of him. And then he almost immediately became a problem in Oakland. I mean, it wasn't that long. And they got rid of him. And then he was a problem in New England. I mean, he ran into a lot of other issues, but if he couldn't make it there, he's really not going to make it anywhere. You could try to bring him in, but it's not, to me, it's not worth it from a GM standpoint. I couldn't agree more. And I don't think their GM makes that mistake.
No, and it's sort of like what you said about Cam Newton. A lot of people are looking, they hear the name Antonio Brown and they
Mm-hmm.
think back to when he was in the MVP conversation
Right.
and put up these huge statistical numbers in
Right.
Pittsburgh. He hasn't done that for 2 seasons now.
Right. And he's 31 years old, you know, as a
So
receiver. Yeah.
you and again, as fans, people tend to cling on to memories
Yeah.
of players.
Right.
When unless you are a diehard Packer fan, or or from Wisconsin and basically went through Favre's entire career, you talk to about Brett Favre to somebody, they're going to think, oh, one of the greatest quarterbacks to play, Super Bowl champion, Green Bay Packers, blah blah blah. Yeah, he
Yeah.
also threw the most interceptions in NFL history.
Right. Right.
I,
Right.
you know, he was a pain in the rear end at times for the
He
Packers.
was. Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you know, so there are negatives too,
Right.
but when fans tend to
They like to
only
gloss over that. Yeah.
cling on to the positive things. Um, so again, you have to take a step back and look at the whole picture.
Yep.
Um, you know, could it be something that you kind of keep on the simmer and just kind of watch them and stuff, and then a couple weeks in, you have a rash of injuries at receiver, and say, okay, hey, we'll bring you in because you don't have another option. He's the best option out there.
Sure. Right.
Maybe I wouldn't bring him in for training camp. I again, I think he would negatively impact a lot of those young players they have. And to be honest, I think, oh, bless you, Lone Wolf. Holy cow.
Sorry, I tried to put the phone away and I couldn't help it.
You know, um, looking at the Seattle roster, I think they have a very young, talented roster.
Right. Yeah.
That they have gotten to the point where, yeah, they are they a Super Bowl roster by just looking at them? No, but it's one of those
Right.
rosters you get in and get hot, and you could make a run when you look at their roster. Um,
Yeah,
so
and depleted as they were last year, they were still a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. Came really close to winning their own division, like we talked about. This isn't a team that needs to take a flyer
right,
on a guy like that. To me, um, I just don't think that's the way to go. Does he
yeah,
behave himself? Maybe, maybe not. But I just don't think that's the way to go.
right. The other thing we'll bring up, because we're from Wisconsin, we are Packers fans. You brought this up. The Packers signed Jordan Love to a fully guaranteed rookie contract.
Fully guaranteed.
Um, and to be honest, I don't think that's a horrible thing. I think you're seeing that a lot with, um, especially rookie quarterbacks right now,
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
taken in the first round, and especially where they got him, because it's later in the first round, so his salary isn't as high as two
Those top picks, right? Yeah,
those
yep.
top guys that.
Herbert, yeah, those guys, yeah, yep. Joe
So
Burrow, right?
I think their thought process, I would assume, is fully guarantee it. We'll exercise the fifth year option, so we have him for 5 years at
Sure,
minimum. And to be honest, if Rodgers is playing for 5 more years at a high level, great.
yeah, we're golden
Um,
then. Sure,
but I don't. Again, this is just being around the game and coaching and all this stuff for years. I think 2-3 years at the most for Aaron,
Right.
and you know, I just and people are probably gonna listen to be, oh, what are you talking about? I'm just being honest. That's my opinion from just watching them and listening to interviews. 2-3 years, and if somehow they would win the Super Bowl, he's done. He's gonna retire. Yeah, again, I've said it numerous times. I don't see
Right.
the passion for the game when he takes the field anymore. It's kind of like I gotta go through the regular season so you get a chance to go into the playoffs, and then the playoffs come. Then he tries to get all pumped up. You can't do that in football. It's
I
either
don't. Yeah, I don't know if I quite see that. I don't think he's lost the fire on it yet. But I will agree with you that if they do win a Super Bowl, whether it's this year or next year, I could see him ending his career. Yes, I agree with that. And the Packers had to be ready for that. So maybe they know something we don't know. I think people are trying to make more out of this than they need to. Like the article I read about it said, oh, well, the number 26 pick has never received a
yeah,
fully guaranteed contract or whatever. Who cares? Who
yeah,
cares?
yeah.
It's peanuts in comparison to the top pick. So who cares?
Right. Yeah, again, you are getting, if he turns out to be an elite quarterback, they got 5 years of a steal
Right.
for
Right.
salary, unless he would hold out and stuff. But
Yeah, I probably
you know,
not, but
I
yeah.
don't think they would get to that point. Um, so yeah, we'll wait and see. I think we've talked about this. We haven't talked about it on the show, but could they have a special package, for him where he'd come in now and then? Maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do see them, like in the past, especially the past couple of years, if they've had an opportunity to get Rodgers out of the game, in the fourth quarter because they were up by 3 scores, and their defense was
Hmm.
playing really well, they wouldn't take him on. They would just be very conservative and run the ball. Well,
Right.
now if you have a guy you think's good, you can take Rodgers out halfway through the fourth quarter, rest him, and put Love out there and get some actual game experience,
Yeah. Give
and
him give
and
him a
see
shot.
and see what happens when live bullets are flying.
Right.
So, um,
Yeah,
again,
let him play at game speed. I mean, I get that, they've kind of transitioned a little bit, or it looks like they're transitioning to a little bit more run heavy of an attack, but yeah, anytime you get a chance to put your guy out there, your young guy, and get him that experience in those situations, you're going to do it. And you should do it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, don't know if Love will turn out to be a great quarterback or not,
Well,
but
no, you
I,
don't
I
know.
but I can respect what the Green Bay is attempting to do. That that they're attempting to foresee the next 10, 15 years in the future, not just this year. And I think that's where you know you get in trouble if you're a team that looks just for the next year or two. Um, it's kind of sort of like what New Orleans is doing, has done.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
kind of a year by year basis,
Right.
but
And
next year,
When Drew Brees is done, which he will be after this year,
yeah,
let's just be honest, he'll be done. What are you going to do? Seriously,
right,
what are you going to do?
right, and so I think that Green Bay is looking at how can let's try to get set up so we can sustain success
Hmm.
into the future, not just the here and the now. And I can respect that. Again, I don't know if it's going to turn out. I think he has the potential to be a good quarterback.
Right.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
None of us knew Rodgers was going to be
as
what
good as
he
he
turned
is
out to be.
or was
No,
or whatever.
no,
Yeah.
when Favre took over for Don Mikowski, and he came in, he was kind of running all over, and then
Right.
Mikowski, was healed, and they benched him. There are a lot of people that were upset that the Packers didn't put Mikowski back in,
Right.
and they rode with Favre. Well, that kind of turned out well. Sometimes you have to upset people because it's the best thing for your organization.
Well, and
It's,
honestly, we've talked about this before, right? You can't bow to the fan pressure. Now, sometimes GMs and coaches, they just make bad decisions, and they'll ride out with somebody who's their guy, quote unquote, or whatever. But there are times when, yeah, like you said, right there, I'm sure a lot of fans at the time would have said, "Oh, what are you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. No different than when the Packers drafted Rodgers, and then people are like, "Oh, what are you doing? Favre's our guy." It worked out in the long run for the organization. They
yep.
made the absolute right choice, and that's what you have to do as a football team. How many teams would kill to have the continuity that the Packers have at quarterback? And I'm not talking maybe even figuratively kill. I mean, maybe they would even literally kill to
Yeah.
have this continuity. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but at the same time, there are so many teams that had hangovers after their stars were done at the quarterback position that some of them are still trying to figure out. Like a
Beside,
Miami or a Denver or somebody. You
how
lose a
about
star, and what do you
how
do?
about how about Cleveland?
Yeah,
Holy cow! Their average starting quarterback lasts like 2 seasons.
yeah.
If you last 3 seasons there, you're a Hall of Famer
and in
to
the
them.
Cleveland Hall of Fame.
So, you know, I, so yeah, like you said, the teams would kill to have the stretch that the Packers have had.
Right.
Um, besides the year that Rodgers got hurt,
Well,
um,
yeah, but
they've had two starting quarterbacks. Yeah, and I only besides the Patriots, you can't find another organization that's had that run.
you can't. You really can't. No.
And so if this love, and then if the love pick turns out, you're looking at almost 40 years.
Right. And I think as Packer fans, we get a little spoiled by some of that. Um, when people start running their mouth about this and that when it comes to the Packers. I I don't know. To me, I guess that's how I look at it is, yeah, let's have that continuity. If this guy turns out and we get another guy for 12, 15, whatever it is, more years after Rodgers, why not?
Exactly.
Even if the guy is not a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he's really good,
Right.
I
It,
I'm in business. I'm there. I'm all over it.
and I'm all about an organization being in the playoffs. Be
Yeah,
in the playoffs,
yeah,
be towards in the top one or two in your division year in and year out, be a playoff team. And then if you can win a Super Bowl, great.
right.
But, I
Stay
learned,
competitive.
when I was a young coach, I learned from college coaches that, the how people evaluate a not just football, but just a sports team or an athletic program is can you average around 500 over the period of time?
Sure.
And if you do, you're should be considered as a successful program because you can't, yeah, I mean, you even look
You're
at
gonna
like
have years that are
Alabama.
up and down, right?
Look at what Alabama was before Saban got there. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't very
Mm-hmm.
good.
No, they weren't.
So
No,
it's not
it
like
was a while between Bear Bryant and Nick
right.
Saban. People,
Everybody looks at well, look at Alabama, look how good they are.
right?
Did you forget the 15 years or so that they stunk? They stunk.
Right.
Nebraska they were in the 90s. Oh my Lord.
They're a
They haven't been,
powerhouse. Yeah.
yeah, they haven't been good for 15, 20 years. You know, so you got to look at it as that. Is your team, is your program, your organization, are they competitive? At least competitive year in and year out.
Right.
You know,
I think that's the mark of success. Yeah.
right.
Yep.
And you look at the Browns. Well, yeah, the expectation's low there because people are just used to them not being good.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a somewhat of a successful season, and all of a sudden it goes from, oh hey, we might actually be able to compete for a 500 record, maybe a playoff spot too. Hey, we're going to
Yeah.
the Super Bowl next year. Look at our roster. It's
That makes no sense. It makes no sense. Just you
you
want to be
have
good. You want to be
yeah.
competitive. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you're starting point, you got to take it step by step. You got to
Right.
build it, and then we get to like where Green Bay is, where they're yeah, they had a couple of down years,
Right.
but
But for the most
for
part,
for the
year in,
most
year
part,
out, they're
year in year out,
competitive.
they're competitive. So I am interested to see how this all plays out the next 3-4 years.
Right.
Because we'll know in 4 years whether this Love pick is a good pick.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, absolutely.
so we'll see. Well, let's move on to our last topic of the night, and I think this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I agree.
So we put together our list of our top 5 sports movies.
Yep.
And to be honest, when I first came up with this idea, and I texted this to you, I thought,
Yep.
oh, this is easy. I was
Yeah.
like, then I started making the
It's not.
list,
It wasn't.
and I was like, wait, what about that one? Whoa, what about that one? So
I did the same thing.
this was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, and I went with 5 movies that, if it was on TV, I would sit down and watch it.
Sure. Okay.
That's what I went with. Like these are 5 no-brainers. If it's on TV, boom, I'm watching it.
So would you go so and I struggle with this too a little bit, and looking at it is do I go with funny or, more serious sports movie or I was like going, back and forth on some of
It
those goofier and funny
yeah,
ones.
and you're gonna see in my list I have a kind of a mix. I have a
Sure.
kind of a
Right.
mix. So,
Yep.
um,
And this is pure preference, I mean, some people might
yes,
say, "Oh,
yes.
that's not the best sports movie." It's our preference.
This is our
That's
top
it.
5 favorites. This is
Right.
not. We're not saying these are the best. These are our favorites.
Our favorites, right? Yep.
So if you want to bash us, you can go ahead and bash us. But we're
Right.
not saying that these are the best. They're what we like. So
I guarantee that a Rocky movie is on your list.
you guarantee it.
I
Okay.
guarantee that a Rocky movie's on your list. I know
Well,
it is. It has to be.
all right. Well, we'll see. I think you're gonna be shocked.
Okay. All right.
With my,
All right.
I think there's gonna be at least 2 on this list that you're like, I never would have thought that. And we've been
Okay.
friends for 40 years.
Been friends for
I
a long
don't
time. Yeah.
a long time. And so let's start with number
Okay.
5.
Okay.
Start with number 5. What do you have as your 5th number 5 on your list?
All right. So, yeah, I was trying to come up with how I would number these and order these. Um, so you start on your 5th,
Okay.
and then I'll do mine because I'm like, okay, I thought I got 5 movies, and I was like, well, what order do I want to put them in? And mainly because I was like, okay, which one is actually the number one for me? you know.
Right.
So yeah,
And so the way I did is I picked my five, and then
right.
I went through. Okay, if this movie was on TV, but then I saw this one on TV,
Oh, sure.
which
Yeah.
one would I
Which one
watch?
would you watch?
Which would
Sure.
I
Okay.
watch
Yeah.
over?
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, more. So my number five. This
Yep.
is a classic. This is a classic. This is
Okay.
considered one of the top sports movies out there in history. Good old Kevin Costner, Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. Yep. Okay. All
Bull
right.
Durham. Love that movie. Love it. It you got there's some serious aspects to it because you got the lifetime minor leaguer, trying to finish out his career, trying to help a young guy up that's supposedly coming up becoming superstar, but then you got the hilarious stuff and the bar fights. Just
Right. Yep.
that is what I could sit down and just watch, no problem, uninterrupted.
Okay. All right. So I agree, and Bull Durham is one of those also on my list. So
Wow.
yep, it made it. It's a good movie, and honestly, it's really well acted all the way around from the three leads. So I it's on my list as well. But my number five, I decided to go with a little bit more goofy. So I went with a classic. I thought about Happy Gilmore, which I would watch in a heartbeat. But this one is an all-time classic that I don't think anybody can really deny, and that's Caddyshack.
Oh, to be honest, that's a great one.
Yeah.
It didn't really come to mind. And I even looked up lists because I'm like, there's got to be movies I'm forgetting,
Sure.
and I just never came across it. That is one. It is a great movie. It probably near in my top 10 it would be probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not one that for me, if it's on just so much
Sure. I know what you
that
mean. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know that all right, I can watch this one whenever. If the ones on my list are on, you usually don't see them on TV.
Sure.
So,
I know what you mean. Yep. Yep. Yep.
all right,
But that was my number five.
all right. So my number four. This is probably my goofiest and funniest sports movie, and it's not a
Okay.
traditional sport
Okay.
by any means. I'm just gonna quote it. Gonna quote one of the classic lines of the movie.
Okay.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Dodgeball.
Dodgeball.
Love
Sports Quarterly.
love that movie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It just every single aspect of that movie is so hilarious, and then at the end, he's just this big pile of fat sitting there.
It's awesome.
It's so awesome, so awesome. So
I love that movie. Oh yeah, yeah.
so I could definitely if that would come on because again you don't see it on
you
TV.
sit down and you gotta watch it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because I thought about that movie and I love that movie, but it's like, do I go more serious? Do I go more comedy? And I'm like, I don't know, but you can't really deny the power of that movie from a standpoint of just sitting down and watching it because you just put it on, you watch it. Friends, Stellan Ashkevich, Da Vinci, you got to watch it.
Yeah, that became a cult classic within.
It really kind of is. Yeah. Yep. Yep. I agree. All right. So, my number four is your number five, which is Bull Durham. So no surprises there in terms of that. I love that movie. I think it's one of those that It really just kind of encapsulates a lot of things about sports and has a lot of entertainment value all the way around. So I agreed with you in the sense that just we switched to place. Bull Durham is my number 4.
All right. I'm gonna let you take number 3.
Okay.
You
All
give
right.
me your number 3 first, and then I'll give you mine.
All right. Well, my number 3 um, is a movie that is more serious. And I thought this is one of the best performances by this actor that he's ever had. And there's been plenty of movies about this person before, but my number 3 is Ali, and with Will Smith. Um, yes, there have been other movies that are out there, but this movie to me is, yes, it's about boxing, but it's about a guy who transformed the sport and who is a cultural icon. So um, I look at it as, I would put it ahead of like a Rocky, and part of that is because Rocky in and of itself, he's the everyman who wins and whatever.
Right.
Um, but it's also diluted to me a little bit because they made 17 sequels to Rocky, and
What?
so it's kind of like, well, okay, I mean, it
They're
ran its
still
course
making
a
them.
little bit.
But they're still
I
making
know
them.
they still are. Creed 2. I mean,
Creed
it's
2.
like another
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just kind of this to me is it's a boxing movie, it's a political movie, it's a cultural movie, it's a biography, it's a whatever, it's everything. I really like this movie.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that was one of Will Smith's best movies he's ever made.
Yeah,
And yeah, that is definitely I would say one of the best sports movies out there just in general. Again, I went with just a little different twist on my list because it was
sure,
what I sit down and watch. Now,
right,
if I
right,
if I was kind of in the mood, yeah, I'd sit down and watch it.
right.
But um, just for my enjoyment, I just don't know if I'd watch it just for just enjoyment purposes.
Sure.
It'd be
Yep.
something that I wanted just to get more information because, like you said, it talks about not just his boxing, but his struggle with you know society and even boxing not really accepting him, and it just
Right.
talks about his entire life, which is fascinating. He's one of those people that people say, oh, list people that you would like to, if that are dead, that you would love to be able to
That
sit
you could
down and
meet.
talk
Right.
with,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
he would be one of them for me because
Oh,
it's just
sure. Yeah.
he was a phenomenal individual.
Right.
Um,
And a compelling personality. Just
right.
a guy who's confident and yeah. Yep.
Well, and even to his dying days with all the health issues he
The
had, he did
Parkinson's and everything. Yeah.
he didn't let that yeah, it hindered him, but he still was out there in the public eye. He didn't
Right. Right.
shelter himself. He was like, yeah, this sucks, but I'm not gonna sit here and just dwindle away because of it. I'm not gonna let this define me.
Right.
So again, yeah, great. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
And I would have no problems with that. High
Yep.
up on a list. Again, my list is I just wanted a different twist.
Sure.
So my number
Okay. So
three,
you're number 3. Yep.
my number three. Now I don't know. Remember how good your memory is, but we went and saw this movie in the movie theater
Okay.
together, and there was
Days of
a kid.
Thunder.
Yes, Days of Thunder. I don't
Yeah.
know
See,
if
my memory is good.
I don't know if you remember the kid that was sitting in front of us that wouldn't shut up, and we started throwing Skittles at him
Yes, I do remember that. I do. Yes, we kept pegging him in the back of the head with
because
Skittles.
he wouldn't shut up. So yes,
Yes.
Days of Thunder is my number three. Again, what I liked about the movie. is that it's different that it brought at the time, especially at the time, it brought in a
Right.
different sport that you usually didn't hear of. And the struggles that race car drivers go through,
Mm-hmm.
physically, just career wise, and the way teams work. But then at the same time, just the hilariousness of like the wrecks that are like
Oh yeah.
were at like the racing, like running into everybody out all the time, and driving backwards, and silly stuff like that that's not real.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
was just
It's
one of
it
those.
is ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, like Talladega Nights, is one of those movies
Right,
that is quote unquote a sports movie, but they do that kind of stuff in Talladega Nights, and it's just kind of funny because it's Will Ferrell and it's
right.
goofy. But
But the thing with Days of Thunder, they're trying to make this was supposed to be a real
oh, right,
serious
like a
movie,
real movie. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Serious. Yeah.
it did bring in aspects of stock car racing, but then at the same time, I think unintentionally they had a lot of funny little moments in it that unless you watch it multiple times, you probably wouldn't pick up on.
Right. Right.
Um, and one of the best scenes in the movie where they're doing the demolition derby with the rental cars
Oh yeah.
on the way
Oh
to
yeah.
dinner.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on, that is awesome. That's just awesome. So yeah, so Days of Thunder, my number
Nice.
3.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So
Yeah.
moving on to number 2. My number 2, and now these are my next 2 are
Yep.
pretty. These are more serious types movies because the content probably isn't serious because you're like, that probably really wouldn't happen.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it actually, I think some of it does happen. So my number 2, and it shows kind of the darkness of professional sports that
Sure.
can be out
Yeah.
there. What people will do
To
to
get
their
ahead. Yeah.
bodies
Yep. Yep.
to, um, be able to play and make money and and solidify themselves as a legend. And that movie is Any Given Sunday.
Okay. Yep.
Love it. It's one of those things where you watch it and you're like, yeah, I mean, you watch, what the players do, injecting themselves with painkillers, you know, just
It's really visceral. It's a visceral
right.
movie, like really in your face about what people
The
will are
the
willing to
the
go
be
to.
the
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff that people don't think about.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell anybody that listens to this show that stuff happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It definitely happens in the NFL. It happens probably with some major college sports programs.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in college when I played college football, we went in the locker room and there was the little those little plastic disposable Dixie cups,
Right.
and they look like vitamins. And they're like, oh, these are the part of your nutritional thing. Okay, well, one of the tablets was creatine.
Yeah.
We didn't know. We just took it
Right.
because so that stuff happens. It's out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but at the same time, like I said, you know, while they're playing, a guy gets his eye torn out. That's never,
Yeah. I mean, that's a little over the top.
that's
Yeah.
never
I
gonna
mean,
happen.
yeah. Right.
Like the huge mansion party where they take a saw and cut a car in half. That's not
Right.
happening.
Right.
So it does go a little over the top, but I just that's one of those movies that it's like I can relate to the you know to it just because
Right.
I'm a coach.
And you played football for a
I
long
play football,
time,
so
and
yeah,
yeah,
so I can
yeah.
relate to it. So any given Sunday, my number
Okay.
two.
And I went with a film that is a little bit more is also very serious, but from I don't know some of a more classic standpoint, but one that's kind of hits on a lot of different things, and it's a basketball movie. I went with the movie Hoop Dreams.
Ooh.
Uh, right, yeah. Which I mean that is one of those I think that
Hmm.
if you look at it, you say there's a lot of basketball movies out there. You know, Hoosiers, White Men Can't Jump.
Wait,
Yeah, I mean, I know like they shouldn't be in the same conversation, but yeah. Uncle Drew. I mean, whatever. But yeah,
uh,
and no, there's a lot of movies out there that are basketball movies. This movie to me is like one of those that you say, okay, and so I approached it a little differently. Would you sit down and watch it if it were on TV? You know, that kind of thing. Like you that was your criteria. Maybe not, but it's a movie to me that if you watch any movies in general, but sports movies in particular, you have to watch. I mean, to me, you're just compelled to watch it at least
right.
once to understand the story, the struggle, everything that goes along with it, and really kind of what basketball is about in a lot of different ways for a lot of people. So I that was my number two.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and give your number one,
Okay, all right.
and
So this is a classic.
then we'll find out if you're right of if
If
because
whether he had Rocky on there or not, I don't
because
know. I'm
my
feeling
number
less
one should be a
confident.
Rocky movie.
Right, I'm feeling way less confident here now, and I was like making this proclamation. I thought you had it, Rocky, but okay. So my number one is a classic. I love this movie. Realizing even though it's not my favorite sport, this movie is one of those that I've seen a number of times, and if it was on, I would just sit and watch it because it's just that good to me. And it is Field of Dreams. You almost just can't not watch this movie, right? If
Right.
it's on, you got to watch it. James Earl Jones, you know, I mean, Kevin Costner, yes, I have him in here twice, but you almost have to. There's just something about this movie that's compelling from a lot of different standpoints, not just about baseball, but you know, it's about a guy who wants to connect back with his own father. Um, eh, you know, and you've got Ray Liotta. You know, I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
different
Yep.
actors in this movie. That's great. I just love the movie. I love everything about the movie. The beginning, the end, the middle, everything. Just it's it's compelling. Um, and I think it's one of those that kind of stands the test of time. You know, the message of the movie is really about how you connect with each other through sports, and that's the beauty of sports. You know, is that it can bring people together, and there's certain things that you can have as commonalities. And even though he does things in the movie that you know some people say he's crazy, in the end he's proved right. And you know, I mean, you can't go wrong with a tagline or a famous quote like "If you build it, he will come."
Right.
Well, everybody knows that line, you know. So yeah, if it was on TV or if I just want to sit down and watch a movie, I'd watch that movie. That's my number one.
All right. And my number one, it again, it brings up a lot of like you were saying with hoop dreams about
Right.
the how basketball really is for people. This movie really brings to light, I guess, the harshness of college football. Um,
Okay.
and
So definitely not Rocky.
it's not Rocky. You are
No,
wrong.
no,
I
no,
do
not at all.
not
Yeah,
have a
not at
Rocky
all.
movie in my top
Okay.
five. It, you know, sort of shows how no matter what coaches say about this athlete is like a son to me, this and that, they're always looking towards the future and who's going to replace that kid.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, college football is, I don't care what people say, they can say it's a college sport. It's a business, especially for the coaches, because they know if they don't win, they're out of a job.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's right. That's harsh reality. And I think this movie really brings that harshness to it. And you don't hear about it that much. It's an older movie. I
Okay.
remember seeing it in the movie theater before they edited the opening scene because some kids went out and tried to duplicate the opening scene. So they had to take the opening scene out. And that movie is The Program.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember that movie now.
The
Yep.
the
Yep.
opening scene, you open up the scene and there are players laying in the middle of the highway as cars are speeding by, and there was kids that actually went out and tried that, and they had to take that out of the film in the movie theaters. But I mean, it shows you know the recruiting process, and what I and again there it's what kids will do to become elite. You have
Sure.
one of the players taking steroids, doing what they call an oil change, which is changing out his dirty urine for clean urine for his tests. Um, Another player, top notch kid that was, you know, supposedly going to be drafted, career
Mm-hmm.
ending injury, and didn't really take his studies seriously. And then after the season, the coach is going back on a recruiting trip, and they're talking about, hey, this kid could replace this kid. This kid could replace this kid. Just the
Right.
harshness of and yeah, not really brutality, but just the reality of what college sports is.
It's a bit brutal, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, that movie it hits to the heart of that.
And the amount of pressure that people put on these young adults. The
Right.
quarterback is a Heisman Trophy candidate, struggles, and then um, you know has an alcohol problem and goes into rehab, and but then comes back. So it kind of it's sort of a comeback story for some players. So it shows the kind of there's little stories in the big picture of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
which I really like. And who doesn't like the line, "Let's put the women and children in bed and go looking for dinner"? I mean, come on, that's a great line. We used that line when I played football. We would say that in the huddle after this movie came out.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
it's just one of those movies. It had some funny moments in it, and
Right. And a lot of serious moments.
a
Yeah.
lot of serious moments. I can't quote some of the comments because they're a little vulgar.
They're a little
Uh,
inappropriate. Right. Yeah.
but yeah, if the program, and I haven't seen it in years, and I
Right.
can't even find it on DVD. I only can find it on VHS. And who has a VHS player anymore? You know,
Right.
um,
I got one in my basement here. I think I could probably plug it back in, and we could throw that in there and watch
dust
some
off
VHS
dust off
tapes.
the
Just saying.
cobwebs, and
Right.
so
It's been
um,
sitting there for a while, but it might work. It might work.
so so if I would like turn on the TV right now, even
Yeah.
during the show, and the program
Yeah.
was on, you probably wouldn't hear me talking anymore.
Yeah. That coach would be done. He's just watching the program. Yeah. Yeah.
So so again, we had a little different takes
Right.
on our lists. The one thing I stayed away from were the true life stories like Ali, because there are a lot of great stories through
There are.
sports, real
Yes,
life. Like
there
The
are.
Blind
Yep.
Side, great movie. I'd watch The
Right.
Blind Side again. I'd watch
Oh,
Ali
sure.
again.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it was. I went at it as like if I didn't know what I wanted to watch, I turn on the
Yeah.
TV and this movie was on. Would I sit down and watch it over anything
Sure.
else?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but
And
there are a
and
lot
and
of
I guess I just kind of went from the angle of out of the ones that are like that, what would I watch? Out of
right.
those. So yeah.
And there's some movies that didn't even make our list that some people are, especially if they're younger listeners, probably are like, what? How, how
Oh,
can you put
sure.
this movie on there?
Or
Like,
older. I mean, Raging Bull
older,
wasn't on there, and I'm sure some
Raging
people were
Bull.
like, "This is the greatest movie
Yeah.
ever," and Robert De Niro. And I mean, I'm not denying it, but it just,
Talladega Nights didn't make it.
Sure. Right. Yep.
Like you said, Happy Gilmore didn't make it.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so there are a lot of great
Yeah,
sports
there's a
movies
lot of a
out there.
Miracle. I mean, that's
Miracle,
everybody loves that movie. I get it. I'm not saying these movies are bad. It's just
right?
we had to put it down and say here's top five. So
Now, there's one, and I'm going to say this: there's one that was really, it, and it's on Netflix right now. So I've got
sure,
to watch it. That's
yeah,
probably why I didn't put it on the list because I'm like, well, I could kind of watch it whenever I want. And I don't even know if you've ever seen it, but we,
okay.
well, I shouldn't say we. I should say I have developed a way to do this in my Phi Ed classes. The movie's Basketball.
Oh, oh, oh! I've seen that movie. Believe me.
That is probably one of the funniest sports movies ever.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
you, I would, I don't. You could put it up against Talladega Nights and all those
Dodgeball, Happy Gilmore,
dodgeball,
any of those, Caddyshack, any of them. Yeah, yeah. Any of the
but
funny sports movies. Yeah. Yes,
but
I did see that movie. I was kind of going through a phase where I was watching pretty much anything that those guys put out,
yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah,
oh yeah, basketball. Yeah, no, no. But it's
yeah.
funny. It's
It's
really,
it's
it,
hilarious.
it really is funny.
So I developed a basketball version of basketball to play in my Phi Ed classes.
Nice, nice.
Um, so yeah, it is
That's
possible to
awesome.
play. It's not as in depth, but
Sure.
um, you know, we don't have uh 2 year long league. that,
I think it's
eh.
great. I think it's funny. I mean, you adapted something for your class. I think that's hilarious. I
Well,
love it.
you gotta find some interesting because not all kids. When you have a basketball, not all kids want to play
Sure.
traditional basketball. Um, so yeah, so those are our top again. I'm preface this. This
Our
is
top
our
five,
top
right?
five. It was not. This is not what we feel is the best. It's
Right.
what we would
We
consider
watch.
our top
Yep.
five and what we would
Yep.
watch. Um, and who knows? Maybe we'll keep doing kind of lists like this of different sports themes down the line because as of right now, we still really don't have
And there's not a whole lot of sports
sports.
content from the standpoint of getting out there and playing. So we have to have to think of some things that are creative. But we're hopeful it's coming soon. I think we're
Yeah,
looking at it. We talked about it several times, so
yeah,
we're getting there.
we're in July and everything's supposed to, the training camps open up here shortly. Um, the NBA is and
Right.
MLB is supposed to be going at the end of the month, so
We'll
we're
see, but yeah.
slowly but surely getting towards actual sports because it'd be great to be able to sit here and talk about the NBA playoffs,
Right.
especially with the Bucks. I mean, hey,
Yeah, being as good as they are. Yeah.
so um, and then it's always fun to watch, with the NFL training camps because things happen in those that can change the dynamics of a team for the season.
Right.
Injuries or you know, you know, right. Lately it really hasn't been major injuries. It's been major attitude issues and
Yeah.
things that have caused teams to make roster moves the last couple of years. So,
Right.
and there's
Definitely.
definitely some things that I'll be interesting to watch. I do want to see if the Browns bounce back and are competitive this year. Because I'm been very critical of Baker Mayfield. We'll see if he
Right.
can bounce back here. Um, but there's a lot of other things. I want to see if my Raiders can make the
Make
playoffs.
make the playoffs to take that next step. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's coming. It is coming. Um, so anything else, Lone Wolf, that you want to cover here
No,
before we
I'm
head
good.
out
I
for the
think
night?
we got everything that we wanted to talk about, and I think that covers it for me. So I'm good.
All right. Again, thank you everybody that listens. We didn't have a ton of live audience tonight, but that happens. It's a holiday
Yep.
weekend here, so that makes some sense. Um, so again, hopefully everybody enjoys their 4th of July. Be safe, be smart, and we will talk to everybody next week. Have a good night.
Night.